Welcome to the Female VC Lab podcast. I have Marcia here. Marcia, in one line, give me your name, your title, and the name of your fund.
Yes, I am Marcia Dawood. I'm a venture partner with Mindshift Capital.
Tell me how it came about that you became an investor or a venture capitalist.
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, someone invited me to an angel investing meeting, and I was like, what? What's that? But I figured out pretty quickly what was going on, all this cool innovation in my own backyard, but then realized how little funding was going to women. So over the last couple of years, I've gotten involved in different funds as either on the investment committee or being an investor myself in that fund, and then decided to branch out and get into the VC world and become a venture capitalist with my friend and fellow venture capitalist Heather Henyon, and we put Mindshift Capital together in order to invest in women-led companies globally.
Wonderful. So you talked a little bit about your thesis, investing in women globally, but can you tell me a little bit more about that thesis and what the motivation for that thesis is?
Sure. As you can probably imagine, investing in companies globally is no easy feat. It takes a lot
Absolutely
of
not.
Takes a lot of compliance, a lot of lawyers. But what we really wanted to focus on were things that were going to make a difference and be able to showcase and elevate women-led companies who are really making a difference in the world. So we focused on 4 areas of tech: fintech, food tech, ed tech, and the big one, health tech.
That's great. So globally, how have you seen a shift in those 4 areas where you invest?
It's interesting. We've heard from all over the world that all roads lead to Delaware, which I think is funny because a lot of times people want to raise money and they end up coming here to the US because either they want to commercialize here, go to market here, or they're trying to actually get capital for funding. And as US investors, we get a little squirrely about investing in companies that we don't, or countries that we aren't really that familiar with because we're afraid of what would happen from a tax standpoint and things like that. I feel like in a lot of cases, we have been able to learn a lot, been able to get into some companies at lower valuations because of where they were as far as on the globe, but at the same time, been able to really help them with the innovation that they're trying to expand into the world.
Oh, that's awesome. So what are you currently reading or learning or listening to these days?
So I am very fascinated right now at people's mindset around money and their relationship to it, because I really believe that if we had more people investing in the companies and the type of change that we want to see in the world, we would have a very different looking world. But when I talk to people about this, they say to me, I thought that was just for the rich. I thought that was just for the well-connected. And so I went ahead and started my own podcast about angel investing, wrote a book about
what's the name of the podcast?
The podcast is called The Angel Next Door.
Awesome.
And it's all about how anybody can be an investor and help some of these early stage companies. Then I went on to write a book called Do Good While Doing, about how you can do good in the world and also get some potential financial returns.
Where can we get your book?
Book is all over on Amazon,
everywhere,
bookshop.org, everywhere you can get books.
Wonderful. So is that what you're learning and listening to?
So from there, I started talking to a lot of people about, hey, would you be an angel investor? Would you blah, blah, blah. And what I'm finding is people all have a very unique relationship to money. And sometimes people are not as quick to necessarily want to invest in a for-profit private company, which is basically what angel investing is, if they aren't really comfortable with it, because it's something that we don't talk about a lot. And in a lot of cases, when I really started to drill down with them, they would say, I just don't know where I would get the money from. Would I take it out of my retirement savings? Would I take it out of this or that? Which bucket does it come out of? And so I think there's a lot of questions about how to do this. And in a lot of cases, women, they tend to donate money and men tend to invest money. So I think there's a lot there.
So you think there's more of an educational gap in understanding? Because I don't think women are averse to investing.
I don't think they are either. I just think, to your point, there needs to be needs to be talked about more. We need to be letting people know that they are invited into the room, that they are invited as investors. The more we start to see the investors looking like the founders we're trying to fund, the more we'll start to see change.
Agreed. So this is an interesting follow-up question then. In 2 years, the bonus question, how do you see investing or venture capital having changed or evolved?
So I am very interested in the democratization of private investing, meaning
Yes.
that it starts to become accessible to more and more people. We started to see that in 2016 when the SEC changed the rules, allowing anyone to invest for as little as $50 through equity
Yes.
crowdfunding platforms. There are other ways that we can do that. And I have a really interesting podcast episode with the CEO of Republic.com on my podcast, The Angel Next Door,
I love
where he
Republic.
talks about, at the end of the conversation, I got him to talk about how Republic is working on this. And so I would highly encourage everybody to listen to that. But I think it's something that can happen. Look at what happened with the public markets over the last 30 years. We can now go to E-Trade, Robinhood, and trade a stock in seconds. But we couldn't do that. Even 20 years ago, it was hard.
For nothing.
Exactly.
You can buy one. You can also buy one share. You don't
or
you
a
don't
fraction
have to,
of a share.
Or a fraction of a share. So that's evolutionized that.
Yeah. So I would love to see it where it's more accessible, because then we'll start to see people making more change.
Do you think some of the rules around investing need to be changed and evolved? The accredited investor, what is an accredited investor? How many people can really invest in something? Do you think some of those need to change and evolve as well?
I think they need to be expanded. I sit on an advisory committee to the SEC. Of course, my views are my own, not that of the SEC or anybody affiliated. But we've talked about the accredited investor definition at length. And I think that if we could expand to include more education and really get people who are interested in this asset class participating, we would see a lot of change.
How do people contact you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, Marcia, Marcia, Dawood, DAWOOD.com. I have lots of free resources there too. I have the first chapter of my book that you can download for free, all kinds of different worksheets. And of course, my podcast is listed by type of podcast you want to listen to. So if you want to learn about equity crowdfunding, you can learn about that. If you want to learn about fundraising in other ways, especially if you're an entrepreneur, there's all kinds of good stuff there.
Thank you so much. Marcia Dawood from Mindshift